Welcome to the Happy Black Woman Podcast, where we're on a mission to empower women to transform their lives through personal development and entrepreneurship. We bring you all the information, inspiration, and motivation you need to create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Now, please welcome your host, the happy Black woman herself, Rosetta Thurman.
Hello. Welcome back to this new episode of the Happy Black Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rosetta Thurman, and ladies, you are in for a treat today. I have with me on the show, Tonya Rapley. She is the founder of My Fab Finance, and she is coming to us with some amazing insight and tips about how to get rid of your debt in 2017. Welcome, Tonya.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And, I always like to share how I came across my guests. And so before we hit record, I was just talking with Tonya, like, how did we come across each other? How did we even get your name? How did all that happen? And we just kind of unraveled over the years that Tonya's been a part of our Happy Black Woman community and our courses and just really blew up over the last few years through hard work, dedication, and an amazing commitment to her brand. So congratulations. And it's so cool to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. That course that I took with you was critical and pivotal in just understanding what speaking could mean for my career. And it really did help me create the revenue that I needed to leave my 9-to-5. So I'm just happy to be part of this community and so happy to be on this podcast.
I love hearing stuff like that. I mean, there's so many mentors, teachers, colleagues, people we watch from afar that contribute to our journeys, and just love that we were a part of yours. And so much I want to talk about. So for everyone who doesn't know you yet, Tonya, tell everybody a little bit about the work that you do at My Fab Finance.
Absolutely. So I started My Fab Finance in 2013. And as the name indicates, it's Fab Finance because I think you can be fabulous and financially responsible. And since I've created the brand, it's evolved over the past few years as I evolved because I created it essentially to be my accountability partner as I started on my own financial journey. And now it's become a resource and tool for thousands, and our community is growing even more every single day. But at the core, the mission at My Fab Finance is to help millennials break the cycle, and not just millennials, but help individuals break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck so they can do more of what they love. And that what they love component is really important to me because I've met so many people who are financially responsible and financially free, but they're still not enjoying their lives. So that piece is important, that you're not just financially responsible just to say, I have XYZ amount of money in the bank or my credit score is this. You're financially responsible so you can actually live the life that you were designed to live while you're here on this earth.
I love that mission. It's so great. And I just love how you shared a little bit about how you started. I think the best businesses get started from someone's personal experience. It's not something that you just made up one day. It's born out of something that you did or a series of things that you did that worked for you. And now you can teach other people.
Yeah. And there's so much passion and love behind what I do at My Fab Finance. I love it. I love what I do. I love helping people with their finances. I love making it relatable and just seeing that light bulb go off for someone who felt like their financial situation was out of their grasp and they realized they actually have power. It's so empowering. And I think I get so much out of the work. It's almost, I feel selfish sometimes because I get so much out of the work that I do for people, but just seeing how it helps others' lives gives me life.
Beautiful. Now, you mentioned that you help millennials. Are you a millennial?
I am. I'm a millennial. I mean, it's the largest age group in history. So I guess I'm an older millennial because my sister's a millennial and she's in her mid-20s.
Yeah.
So I'm an older millennial.
Right. I was going to say, you sound so wise, Tonya.
I live life. I have definitely tried a lot. And I think that in that pursuit of finding what makes me happy, as we were saying, I'm in the process of relocating from New York City to Los Angeles at the end of this month. And I've just learned so much. I've lived so many places and I'm thankful. It's lent to a good teacher to help me becoming a good teacher.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, of course, the big question is, what made you actually decide to do this work? Like, it sounds like you went from starting this personal site to hold yourself accountable, and then it turned into giving advice to other people. How did you get to the point where it's like, I want to do this for a living and quit my job and do this?
Right.
What was that decision?
Right, because growing up in high school, I struggled with math. Well, growing up all throughout school, I struggled with math. And when I went to college, I was like, I want to get as far away from math and numbers as possible. So
Wow.
I ended up getting a degree in public. I know, right? Now I'm looking at someone sent me a spreadsheet today. I'm like, how did I get into this? But so I ended up getting a degree in public administration, but it wasn't my college education that led me to My Fab Finance. It was actually what I was going through while I was in college. So I was in a relationship that was financially, physically, and mentally abusive. And up until that point, I had my money together for the most part, but I entered that relationship. And when I left that relationship, when I decided it was time for me to go, my finances were a mess because he took advantage of the fact that I did have my finances in order and use that to take out debt in my name and rack up credit card debt and just all types of things that it took me years to untangle. But also walking away from that relationship, it did ding my self-esteem. And it wasn't necessarily the mental abuse from him. It was me questioning why I allowed that to happen because I felt like I was so much smarter than that relationship I was in. So take that and combine that with poor financial decisions and just acting like your finances are going to autocorrect. And my finances were a mess by the time I reached my late 20s. So I started the blog, My Fab Finance, and other people started sharing it. And then people started saying, oh, you're like the Black Susie Orman. And I was like, this is a problem because I'm not the Black Susie Orman. I'm Tonya Rapley. And I feel like we don't have to be a carbon copy of like someone else in finance. And I realized that there weren't individuals that people in my generation were looking up to for personal finance. Whenever I mentioned I was doing personal finance, they're like, oh, well, you should get Susie Orman's book. And I was like, okay, we need people that we can look at in our community that look like us, who understand the dynamic of being a woman of color in the workplace and navigating this world and all the societal pressures that come with being a woman of color. And so that was why I started to proceed with My Fab Finance. And then a year after starting My Fab Finance, I was named the new face of wealth building by Black Enterprise Magazine and was on their October 2014 cover.
Amazing.
And I was like, wait a minute. Okay, this is something else. This is not just a blog. And so from that point on, I started working with my friends and mentors, Tiffany Aliche Budjanisa. She's been on here before too. She's one of my friends and definitely was a mentor to me early on with My Fab Finance. And we developed my plan for how I was going to make this a reality and do this full time. And so I resigned from my 9 to 5 in September of 2015 to do My Fab Finance full time. And that was one of the biggest, most nerve-wracking decisions I feel like I've ever made in my life. And I've done a lot of, questionable stuff. But that was a moment where it made me question everything about myself and has been a really good decision.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into, that decision, but just the trajectory of how you got into personal finance and then kind of started to see that this could be something more. I just love all the steps that it took. It took a negative personal experience to open up this possibility, because if you continue to have your stuff together, you might not have seen the value in sharing this stuff with other people. And then you built this community. So I just love when I hear stories like that, because it reiterates the fact that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I always say that. And I mean, I wouldn't wish abuse on anybody, but like My Fab Finance came out of that situation. And if I had to do it again, I don't know if I wouldn't say I'd do it again, but I am so thankful that I was able to create something so beautiful out of something that was so painful for me.
It also really speaks to the power of being able to start over and bounce back, because I know a lot of women in a happy Black woman tribe, and I know your ladies are listening thinking, wow, I might be in a similar situation. We hear a lot of stories about people getting divorced and then just not, pretty much having to start from ground zero. And it's really inspiring to hear how you went from that to fixing your own stuff again, and then, really being a beacon for everyone else. Tell me, what is it that you do now to help people? I know that you do speaking. What else is involved in My Fab Finance and what you offer?
So my Fab Finance has been evolving. I mean, that first year of entrepreneurship, and I'm sure that any entrepreneur can speak to this, you're kind of figuring out things. Like, when you go into it, you know what you want to offer, but then you start doing it, you're like, you know what, I don't know if I like this as much as I thought I did, or
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoy doing, XYZ more. So this year we've introduced master classes where I wanted to create affordable classes for people to come and learn from me and my team of experts or my colleagues in the space. It's finance tips, personal finance, or life hacks or travel, just things that add to the quality of your life, because it's about the holistic, fabulous, free life. And so we offer master classes. I take on a few coaching clients, but coaching is a lot of energy, and I throw myself all the way in it. So I have to also guard my energy and be mindful of how many clients I take on, as well as another revenue stream outside of My Fab Finance is working with personal finance companies on how to properly connect with millennial audiences and create products and services that serve millennial need. Because there are a lot of people who are making decisions about the products that we use that aren't connected to our audience. So I work closely with some personal finance companies to just create things that suit our needs and serve us better, and also communicate authentically to their audience, because a lot of brands are struggling with that. And I think that with My Fab Finance, that has been my recipe for success, is just maintaining authenticity and being transparent and understanding that My Fab Finance might not be for everyone, but whoever it is for and who identifies with it, it has found a home. So working with brands to help to figure out how to do more of that.
Mm-hmm. So that's more like consulting.
Yes.
Yes, beautiful. It's amazing just how many possibilities there are. It doesn't have to look like one thing. You can take your expertise and apply it to so many different industries and segments, really. It's just really cool to hear how you've evolved. And for everybody really listening and being inspired, I want to make sure that we can give out some ways that people can get started. And I think the number one way that people really come to this is, how do I get out of debt? Like, how do I just overcome the past, whatever situations people have gotten themselves through? I remember in college, I just used my credit card. Like, I had no idea I was going to need to pay it back. I just did
Mhm.
not absorb that reality and really got myself into trouble.
Yeah.
And you can't really move forward completely until you kind of release all of those mistakes that you made. And the good news is it's possible. But if someone's just starting, they're at this moment, it's like 2017, this is the year that I get rid of my debt and start over fresh. How can they do that?
Yeah, so debt repayment became a passion of mine last year. So when I started My Fab Finance, I was focused on credit, and because that was what I started with, building my credit and my
Mm-hmm.
savings. But then I started focusing on debt last year and created something called the Banish to Balance Challenge, which is actually a free online challenge and e-course that people can take. And within 60 days, the community had paid off over $210,000 worth of debt in 60 days.
Wow.
And so I'm committed to, and continuing that into 2017, I'm committed to helping people eliminate debt, because you're not completely free when you have debt. And that's something I realized as I left my job and I started paying things down aggressively, but I still had some debt when I left my job. And I realized, I was like, my money is not necessarily mine because I have to pay these people. And I'm not completely free until I pay them. So most people, one of the things people ask is, whether they should pay off debt or, aggressively save first if they don't have any money in savings. So really determining what your financial objectives are and what you need in your life at that point, because everybody needs something different. I always recommend people, before they start aggressively paying off debt, they have at least $2,000 in their savings account, or are on the way to having a $2,000 in their savings account. But when you start your debt repayment process, the first thing is to get a snapshot of that debt. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I think I have about $9,000, $7,000 in credit card debt, and maybe about $50,000 in student loan debt. Usually it's approximate figures, it's not exact figures. So one of the first things I have clients do is sit down and list out all your debts. List out debts that you owe to creditors, list out debts that you owe to student loan servicers, list out debts you owe to individuals. Like, list out all your debt. And then and then after you list out all your debt, decide what debt repayment strategy is best for you. A lot of people like the snowball method. I like the snowball method because it helps you get those quick wins under your belt. Some people just want to see their debt disappear, but with the snowball method, you can slowly bite away at your debt, and then you can take the money that you've used from the smaller debt. Let me back up and explain what the snowball method is, because I'm realizing I have my finance cap on. So the snowball method is actually, you list your debts and then you look at what the smallest amount is. And then you continue to pay the minimum amount on your other debts, but you allocate additional funds or resources to paying off the smallest debt first, which is, they'll get you the quick win. So you pay off that small debt, whether it's $100, $50, $1,000, aggressively work to pay that down while paying the minimum on your other debts. Once you paid that off, you then allocate the resources you were using to pay the small debt off and take the next smaller debt on and aggressively attack that until it continues to gain momentum and you have a snowball that eventually rolls you down your debt hill. But there are some people who like to start with interest rate first, the highest interest rate first, because that's their most expensive debt. And when thinking about debt repayment, there really is not necessarily a wrong way to do it as long as you're tackling it. You have to do what is most comfortable for you, but also joining the community, the Banish the Balance Triumph Club. Like, it's so inspirational to see women of color come in there and say, hey, I had a goal to pay off $10,000 in debt this year and I beat it and I paid it off 2 months early. Or just yesterday, someone said that they paid their car payment off 3 months early. And it's a community of people who are celebrating you and not like, oh, well, that's nice. Must be nice one day. Like, everybody is just really excited for you and helping you come up with different ways that you can pay down your debt. So really gathering people around you who are also focused on paying down their debt and can provide you with additional strategies.
Right. It's so important to be surrounded by the right people at the right time, because it's a commitment, a really big commitment for some people who have debt from other people that they, had to take on their own school debt. And I'm wondering, what do you say to the woman who, she's unemployed? We talk about this all the time. I focus more on like, how can we create possibilities for you to create money and all of that. And, I leave the savings and everything else to other people. But, for the woman, we always get this for the woman who said, well, I'm unemployed. I can't create. There's nothing that I could do to. So now she feels like she's in debt, she's unemployed, and it just is a downward spiral from there. What do you suggest to the person that, where do they start with this process if they have multiple hardships facing them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real situation, because in working with clients too, there's some clients, either they're unemployed, underemployed, and it's very challenging for them to just make ends meet. And the priority is like taking care of you and your family first. I mean, at the end of the day, that's a priority. There are other things you can do. You can create, you can settle your debt once you get back on your feet. You can aggressively pay it down once you get back on your feet, but it really is making sure that your basic needs are taken care of. I don't think that, it's a matter between your children eating and you paying on a credit card. Like, of course, you should definitely make sure you and your family eat, or you eat, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not ever going to solve that problem. So prioritizing self-care. And I know that some people might feel guilty about prioritizing self-care when they have those debts, but another thing is communicating with your creditors. All creditors don't have hardship programs, but some of them do. And communicating with them and letting them know, like, hey, I'm not able to pay this debt right now. Do you have a hardship program? I want to pay you eventually. Currently, I'm unemployed or underemployed, and I'm trying to make a way. And some creditors will understand. Some of them won't. And those are the ones that you just have to deal with when you get back on track. But really focus on taking care of yourself so that you can get back on track.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much stress. I think a lot of it's created from really shame. There's a lot of shame among Black women about debt. Like, I'm in debt. Da, da, da. And for me, it's like, it's a fact, it's a fact that you need to deal with. And thankfully we live in a country where we can't be thrown in jail for being in debt.
Thankfully.
So we still get to walk around free and, try to find the money to pay people off. But a lot of us get really stressed out and shame about it. And we don't want to talk to anybody about it, let alone reaching out to creditors. And we just kind of want to hide it. And when you're hiding it, you can't really solve it. So do you have anything that helps the women who are really in a space of shame?
I do a lot of mindset work. And members, I usually go into my Triumph Club. I actually stopped this past month, but going back in and just having like a Mindset Monday. and like Motivational Monday, because when we're on our financial journey, like you said, there's so much shame. There's so much, your shame and your financial situation, or you're just continuously beating yourself up for your financial mistakes. And just reminding people, like, everybody makes mistakes. There's not anyone who doesn't make mistakes. And you have to reconnect with who you are and know who you are as a person, even through your financial struggles,
Right.
because your financial struggles don't define who you are as a person, although it may seem like they do. So one of the things that I recommend is like finding a centering affirmation or a reminder of telling yourself, like, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. And I have always been enough, and everything will be okay. And I will come through this. Another thing that I did for myself was reflect on moments where I overcame the seemingly impossible, or where I was at what I thought was my lowest point, and going to that space like, oh my gosh, I overcame that. I can definitely overcome like this. This is absolutely nothing. Because I think a lot of people, we have these victories that we've achieved, and then we forget about it when we face a struggle. And it's like, no, tap into that person you were when you overcame that victory. That feeling that you had when you found a solution or you created a solution, tap into that feeling, because that you're the same person and you can overcome this situation. But it is just reminding people of their power.
I think that is so important. I'm so glad you said that about, your financial situation does not define you, because it does seem that way a lot of times. And I think what you said about centering exercises, affirmations are great. And for me, they really do allow you to kind of separate yourself from the world. I always share with our tribe that you have to understand that you are, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. So you can't take on society's beliefs and judgments about you. You have to create your own sense of self. And I love the idea of having an affirmation it's a reminder, and also a kind of calming mechanism that even though you got bills piled up, it doesn't mean that you're not who you are. It doesn't mean that you can't get through this.
Find what your self-care looks like. Find what your inexpensive self-care looks like. So for me today, I took a walk, because I'm extremely transparent. I started to banish the balance community because I saw that debt was a problem for others, but it was something that I wanted to eliminate from my life. And, as an entrepreneur, in my first year of business, I took on more debt than I actually wanted to in retrospect. And so like, there are things that I do for myself to remind myself, like, Tonya, everything's okay. You're doing this work, and you're going to pay this off. So I don't say it from a place of like, oh, I've never been in debt or anything else. Like, I know what it feels like to be dealing with that. And you have to develop your own self-care practice, whether that's getting an aromatherapy mister and putting peppermint aromatherapy oil in it and just like sitting there and inhaling it for 5 minutes, or getting a coloring book or something like that and coloring, just to get your mind off of focusing on that problem that you perceive you have or that you're experiencing.
Yeah, because then we can be in a more clear state of mind and actually implement the action steps that you shared with us in a focused manner.
Yeah, clarity is everything.
Wow. Well, I love those tips. And I hope that you all will go back and listen and take notes and really identify at least one thing that you can do for 2017 to focus on, because for many of us, this is an ongoing process. You got to start somewhere, and don't try to make yourself have to do it all in the next 3 months. So in your journey, Tonya, has there been, I'm always curious about what people, like how people developed their sense of empowerment around a topic. So were there any books that you read that you can recommend for our ladies here? Because all we do is we go straight to Amazon. Books that you have read in your journey that have inspired you, or ones that you read early on that really got you on the path to really being committed to being debt-free. Is there anything you can suggest to us?
Yeah, there are 3 books that I picked up when I started, or books that I work with, or, reflect back on, or every now and then go back and look at my highlights. One is actually not a personal finance book, but it's a personal development book, and The Power of Habit. Because your financial relationship, your money, things you do with your money are a reflection of the habits that you developed over time. So The Power of Habit was really helpful for understanding how we create habits and identifying our own habits within our life. And I think that it's one of the most enjoyable books that I've read from like a scientific perspective of our habits. Like it's really an enjoyable read. It gives examples such as, Rosa Parks and how the civil rights movement started and how she created a new habit for others around her. It's just a really powerful book. So Power of Habit is one of my favorites. Energy of Money is also one of my favorites because my spiritual practice is critical to my everyday life and the work I do at My Fab Finance. So Energy of Money is fantastic.
Now, who's the author of that one?
Dr. Maria Namath.
I think I was in mastermind with her too. She was in my
Oh,
mastermind group.
really?
I had no idea that she had a book. That's awesome.
Yes, Energy of Money is fantastic. That's how you know I love it because I know the name of it and it's packed away with all my books now. But that book, The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbrough, was a really good book on creating wealth as an African American or a person of African descent. And the last one is One Page Financial Plan by Carl. His last name escapes me, but that's one of the easiest financial books that I've read about getting your whole financial life in order. Like the way he breaks it down is just so relatable and you can make it work for any place you are in your life. Oh, two more, Rosetta, two more. I love books. Okay. Two more. Girl, Get Your Money Right. That was also one of the first.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff. That was,
I remember reading that back in the day.
Yeah, it was like the first one, but it was empowering. It was like a finance book from my language that I identified with.
Right.
Then as an entrepreneur, someone recommended this to me a few weeks ago and it's been attached to my hip, Profit First.
Oh, yeah. I got that one on my desk too.
I was like, wait, why didn't someone gift this to? Everybody's giving me gifts when I left my job. I was like, I wish gifted me this. That book is attached to my hip right now and it has really restructured how I'm actually going to conduct my accounting going for my business. So I definitely recommend that for new entrepreneurs.
Beautiful. I love all those recommendations. It gives people a really great place to start and, really empower themselves and learn for themselves. I mean, I think we should all have a combination of mentors, training, but also really digging into the original sources and learning for ourselves is really important too.
And I encourage people to go to the library. A lot of times, I'll go on Amazon and pick up a book. But one of my really good friends, she took me to the library for the first time in years. And, you save money as long as you take the book back before it's due, before it's overdue and you get a collection item on your credit report. But as long as you take it back, you can borrow the book and return it. And if someone is in a situation where they're like, I don't even have enough money to buy a book, Tonya, you can go to the library. And that's self-care in itself is just sitting down and reading a book in one of the library rooms in a quiet room. Because a lot of people, that might be the most quiet space they can find.
Right. And I love that too, because it is so empowering. We don't often talk about this in the show, but I feel like I should do like a whole post or show about it. And that is how to improve yourself on low cost or, for free, because all these books that we're talking about, you can find them for free, or even I found a whole bunch of books at the top of the year for $1 at this, bargain basement bookstore or something. And I was like, I was just about to buy this off of Amazon.
And you got it for $1. Yeah.
I got it for $1. And now I can highlight it and take notes because I'm that kind of reader.
Me too. I like to write in it and like love on it and reflect back on it. But if there's somebody who does have limited resources, there are ways to get the information. And when I was in college, one of the things I did was I would Google the name of the book and then look up PDF, like put PDF behind it. So that's how you can find like Think and Grow Rich.
Right. Because a lot of them are in the public domain now.
Yep. Just so Googling it and putting PDF behind it. And you might be able to find a PDF version online that you can read in the comfort of your home.
Yeah. That just speaks to the determination of, what it looks like when you're committed to being debt free, being financially wealthy, all of those different things. Like, you don't let yourself be stopped by one obstacle. You get what you can get. And then when you can get more, you get more.
And flipping that switch to being solution oriented.
Yes.
So thinking outside the problem, becoming more solution oriented. Like, okay, I don't have money for this. How can I make a way? And, and when you look for the solutions, you find them.
Yes, that applies to so many areas of our lives, especially finances. Well, I know that we're getting towards our time, but I have to ask you, I cannot let you go without asking you, knowing what you know now, what is the number one tip or piece of advice that you could give to beginner entrepreneurs, women who are just starting on this journey? And so many women, they get inspired by my guests. We're all entrepreneurs and running our own businesses at whatever level. And so people are listening and they're like, well, that sounds great. And she sounds like she's successful, but could I really do that? Should I do that? Can I really turn my idea, my passion, my experience into something that's profitable? What would you tell that woman that is right there on the verge of jumping in?
Make sure you've tested your ideal. Make sure that you have a market for your idea, because I don't necessarily believe in build it and they will come. I think that people have so many resources available to them and so many offerings available to them that you should test it out before you take that leap, and make sure you have paying customers before you take that leap. Because just because you have money saved up doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily encounter paying customers if you haven't developed that customer acquisition strategy. And that's so important, because if you don't have customers when you start your business, then you start to go into panic mode and you don't make good decisions from a place of panic.
Right.
And so it really is testing that idea before you fly, and then joining a community of others who will support you as you are leaping, because you will need a tribe around you. There will be times where you just need someone to tell you, like, no, you really can do this. You did this.
Right.
You can really do this. And you're going to need more than one person, because that one person might get tired of telling you that. So you're going to need other, it takes a community. It's not just one person. It takes a community, and being kind to yourself in that process too.
Wonderful.
So I gave you a little more than one.
No, that's such great wisdom. We're not going to complain about that. We love it. Such a great practical piece of advice just around the testing your idea bit, because a lot of advice that's out there is, follow your passion, do what you love. And that's important, but you got to make sure that it also aligns with what other people want to pull out their wallet and pay for.
Yeah, the demand.
Yeah.
Make sure there's a demand, or that you know how to create the demand.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that if someone, if you don't see anything like what you offer in your market, that doesn't mean give up on it.
Right.
But it just means make sure you have paying customers before you go ahead and go all the way in. Because entrepreneurship, even when you do have paying customers, entrepreneurship is a grind.
Yeah.
It's work. It's the hardest I've ever worked.
So rewarding. I always tell people there's no amount that anyone can give me right now to go back to, a regular job, because it's not for me. For some people, that is for some people, but it's just not for me. But there's a price to pay for all of that. And if you're willing to pay it, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Tonya, you've given us so much today. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And for those who are definitely going to want to stay in touch with you and join your community and all of that, how can we get more resources from you?
Yeah. So I provided a financial checklist. It's in the show notes. So it's a free financial checklist, just to say, if you don't even know where you need to start with your finances, like, this financial checklist will help you kind of figure out what areas of your financial portfolio, your financial life need attention. So that's in the show notes. And then you can find me, I'm uniformly branded on all social media platforms as My Fab Finance. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. I'm not really on Periscope, but Facebook. I'm doing a lot of Facebook Lives these days as My Fab Finance. And as you can tell, I love to talk. So I often engage with my audience. I always look at it as my audience, and the people who allow me to be a part of their journey are what make it possible for me to do this work. So I will always make time for anyone who is interested in the work that I do and allowing me to be part of your journey. So feel free to communicate with me on social media. And then if you do have debt that you want to eliminate, there is the Banish the Balance Challenge. We should hit 5,000 members probably by the end of next week. So there's 5,000 people there who are all committed to eliminating debt for their lives, there to support you and cheer you on as you aggressively pay down your debt or just shift your mindset. And that is at banishthebalance.com, or you can find it on myfabfinance.com.
Wonderful. I love it. So many ways that you can connect with Tonya, and we will have all of those links posted in our show notes, so you can go right there and connect with her. Again, thank you so much, Tonya. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And ladies, if you have not listened to our previous episodes, you are missing out. Tonya is just one of our amazing expert guests who have really shared from the heart generously, all for free. Go to happyblackwoman.com/podcast and you can listen to all of our previous episodes and get all caught up. Until next time, have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Happy Black Woman podcast. If you want all the show's notes from today's episode, go to happyblackwomanpodcast.com. Plus, we'll send you a copy of Rosetta's free life mapping workbook. We look forward to empowering you next time. And until then, do something this week that makes you happy.